Okay, so we're going to have a look at the timeline in Premiere CS6 and a little bit more detail, including these tools and also insert and overwrite features here. I've got a few clips on the timeline here, and I think we looked at a couple of these tools in a previous tutorial. The selection tool is probably the one you use the most often. You can use that for clicking, selecting things, moving them around if you want to. Below that we have something called a track selection tool. So that will select everything on a specific track and all the things that are linked to it. So in this case that's the video and the audio which is linked to it here, but not the audio track. If I click on this audio track, then it selects just this audio track. It'll also select everything to the right of that arrow. If I want to select everything, like a whole batch of stuff to the right of the arrow on multiple tracks, I can hold down Shift. You'll see that double arrow comes up and it selects everything to the right of that arrow. So that's good for moving blocks of material around if you want to move a whole piece. Below that we've got a ripple edit tool. So let's just zoom in a little bit and we can have a little bit closer look at what that does. A ripple edit tool basically allows you to move the edge of one clip, and then it will close up the gap. So it drags the clips to the right or to the left of that and pulls them back. So you'll see that this tool is yellow, and we'll see that other tools are red. Basically, when you see a yellow tool, what it means is that the length of your project is going to change because of the way the tool works. So let's just quickly drag here and you'll see what I mean by that. So if we watch the clip here, if I drag this in, then that clip has been shortened and it's closed the gap up, but the actual length of the project has changed there. You can see that the end point of that project is moving. Okay, so that's slightly different from this tool, which is going to leave a gap. So there's a red tool there, and if we close that up, you'll see that it's leaving a gap. The end of the project here has not changed length. Okay, so that's generally the difference between the yellow and the red. One is opening or closing gaps, usually the yellow tool, and the red tool doesn't do that. It kind of leaves gaps for you. When we come to look at the insert and overwrite functions, you'll see that they work kind of in the same way. Okay, so the ripple edit tool will close up that gap. We then have a rolling edit tool, and a rolling edit will allow you to change the cut point basically between two clips. So, and it'll give you a little guide for that up in the top right hand output monitor in the project, in the program monitor. So if I click here and just drag to the left or to the right, you'll see firstly it splits the screen into two, and you can see that it's giving you the kind of out point of the first clip and the in point of the next clip, just so that you can kind of see what's happening there. Because it's a red tool, again, if we look at the end of the project here, it's not changed length, but we've changed the cut point between the two clips. Okay. And the next tool down is a rate stretch tool. It's not something we use a huge amount, but this will slow down or speed up your clips. So that applies a slow. If we make it shorter or longer, that's going to slow down or speed up the clips. There's also an effect to do that. If you control click on one of the clips that you've got, you can go to speed and duration, and that effect there will do much the same thing, but in a slightly more controlled way. So you can pick a percentage to change the speed of your clip. So 100% is normal speed, 50% is half, 200% is double speed. You can also do reverse there, and a couple of other effects. The razor tool we looked at last time, very simple but very useful tool just for making cuts to your clips, and then you can divide them up and move them around if you need to. And then a couple of other tools down here at the bottom, slip and slide, kind of work in similar ways but slightly different. So if we do a slip edit, again, it'll divide the screen up into two at the top here, and it will show you the in points and the out points. And basically what it's doing is it's moving the in points and the out points of this clip on either end of them without actually changing the position of that clip. So let's have a little example of that, because it's quite complicated to understand that.
I mean, obviously,
if we have a look at this clip here,
I think a handful of female members here.
You can see the guy's blowing his nose, and that's maybe not something that we want to have. So I'm just going to use the slip tool here, and we can move our cut points a little bit so that we're moving beyond that point of that clip. Let's just have a quick look. Okay, so now
I mean, obviously being one one of, I think, a handful of female members here.
Okay, so we've moved that clip within the boundaries of its in-point and out-point, within the boundaries of the project. So that's a good way of just kind of changing your in-points and your out-points without having to move too much around in your project. The slide tool does a kind of similar thing, but instead of moving the boundaries within this clip, it relates to the clips on either side of it. So I can move this clip left or right within these three clips. Okay, again, this is a red tool, so it's not going to change the length of your project. It's just it's a more complicated way of moving in points and out points. So that's something you might want to have a look at some point as well. Okay, and the pen tool and the move tool and the zoom tool are kind of the pen tool is for use with kind of effects and slightly more complicated edits. So we'll look at that a little bit later on. The hand tool is just for moving things, and the zoom tool you can zoom in on clips, but you can also use the zoom bar down at the bottom here. Okay, so we've got a series of clips here on the timeline. There's a few functions here which we'll look at in a little bit more detail in a little bit. Something that's quite useful at the moment, you'll see that I'm just disabling and enabling audio tracks and video tracks temporarily sometimes. So for example, if I want to turn on an audio, this audio track here just has some atmosphere in the back of it. So let's have a quick listen.
Really friendly club. Very, very all-inclusive.
Okay, so that's maybe a little bit intrusive at the minute and just getting in the way. And we may want to keep that for later on, and we may just want to turn it off temporarily so that we can carry on working. If you select that little speaker there, that just disables everything on this audio channel. Okay, so if we wanted to turn the interview off, for example, you could disable that. We've got no audio. Bring back the interview. There's the interview.
All-inclusive.
But no atmosphere tracks. Okay, so those are useful. You could do the same with video by toggling the eye. Okay, that will just get rid of a video track if you want it to. Just quite a useful way of kind of selecting certain parts of the timeline to work on. Okay, so inserts and overwrites. We looked at dragging and dropping from the monitor up here previously. It's fairly straightforward. The insert and the overwrite will allow you to insert clips at certain points. So let's say we want to insert a clip of some people. We've got a clip of some people here. And we want to insert that in between this clip and this clip. Okay, so we'll line up our cursor at the right place. You can also mark an endpoint using I if you want there. And rather than dragging and dropping, because if we drag and drop, it's gonna either write over what we've got here, and we may not want that. Okay, so it's scrubbed over the first part of this clip. Let's just Control Z and undo. If we want to insert, so if we want to create some space and put that clip in other words, change the length of our sequence by moving this clip up, then we can use the insert tool just here, and that will slot everything that you want to slot into this area by moving the rest of these clips up. Okay, so that's fine. We've put our clip in, but you can see what it's done is it's also inserted on the line where the audio, where the interview is lying. So that's maybe not something that we'd want to do because we've now got a break in the interview. Okay, so what we can use in conjunction with these tools, insert and overwrite, is these sync lock tools on the track here. So by unsyncing various tracks, we can ask it to ignore the rule which we're applying. So on this case, let's just unsync this audio channel at the bottom here with the interview. Now when we do an insert edit, you can see that it's gone in on video 1 and audio 1, but it hasn't gone in on audio 2. So that interview down there has been preserved. So that's quite useful. So sync lock basically allows you to deselect or select the channels that you are applying the rule to. Okay, so we've inserted our clip there. We could have done an overwrite edit. Let's just quickly go back. Overwrite performs the function that we actually just saw by default from dragging from up in this area. So overwrite will overwrite a certain area. So for example, if we wanted to put that cut of the people in the middle of this cut here and then go back to that cut, we could have used an overwrite edit. And that hasn't changed the length of the clip, it's just scrubbed over this clip. Okay, and let's jump back again, undo. And okay, so that allows you to put things in on any line that you want to and in any position that you want to. So let's say at the minute we're just working on video 1 and audio 1. Let's say we want to work on video 2 and audio 2, because we might have some audio to put in, or we might have a graphics file, for example, a title to put in on video 2. So video 2 basically is another video channel for just allowing anything that you want to put on it, but it's got a top-down priority system. So if you put a clip on video 2, and let's say this was our, let's just take the video from our people shot, so we can drag video here and we put it down onto video 2. When it gets to that point,
very all-inclusive. I mean, obviously being one of, I think,
it'll play it in preference to whatever is on video 1. So there's a top-down priority system. Same with video 3, video 4. If you want to create some new video tracks or audio tracks, just right-click or control-click in this area here, and you can go to Add Tracks or Delete Tracks. Okay, so if we add tracks, then we can choose how many video tracks we want to add, the position we want to add them in, and also audio tracks and various other different types of tracks there as well. Okay, so you can add and remove tracks that way. Let's remove that. Okay, so in this situation, we can start. It starts to get a little bit more complicated. So we maybe have a graphics title that we want to use on the beginning of this clip, but we want to insert it because we want to create a bit of black space, so that we've got a title that works from black. So I've got a title just down here, which I can load up in our source monitor. Okay. And we're going to use an insert edit for this so that we can create some space for that title. So, but we want to put it onto video 2, so that maybe I can do a little bit of dissolve, or I can kind of overlap this file, which in a minute we maybe want to overlap this over into on top of the clip. So I think it's good as well. It's good practice to space your files out a little bit on the timeline. You've got space for video 2 and video 3, so use it. So we're going to line up a couple of things here. Over on the left here, this tells you what's available in the source monitor. So in this case, we've just got video from here. We've just got a video file because it's a graphics file. There's no audio available in this clip. If we were to load up a proper video file with audio embedded in it, you'd see that now we've got audio available. So it's saying, well, where do you want to put these two files, this video file and this audio file? Okay, so this video file we want to move on to track 2. So we'll start by moving this up to here. Then you've got an option to select or deselect these panels here. And these relate to what's happening on the timeline. So if we want to create space on our timeline through our insert edit, then we need to select what track we're going to do that on the timeline. So we're going to select video 2 here. We'll deselect video 1. We don't want to do anything on the audio channels because we're just inserting a video track, so we're going to deselect all of the audio channels as well. So now we can do an insert edit. Let's just make sure everything else is synced. So just bring back on the sync for the audio here. We'll do an insert edit, and that's going to move everything up because everything was synced, and just insert things on insert what we want to insert on this track, on video 2. So video is lined up to video 2. We've now got a title coming in on video 2.
it is a really friendly club.
So in that case, we want to use an insert. If we'd used an overwrite in that example, then it's just going to put it on top there, which is fine, but that's maybe not what we want. Okay, so
it is a really friendly club. Very, very all.
Okay, so maybe we want a bit of black and then we want it to fade in. So we could go back to our insert edit here. So let's just resync that. So we can do our insert edit at the front here. And then we could have maybe dragged with our select tool over to the front of this clip here. So we've got a blend now. That
it is a really friendly club. Very, very all-inclusive.
Okay, so you can see then from this title that we've got here, it's actually transparent. So when it appears when there's no clip beneath it, it's going to appear as if it's against black. When if you put a clip underneath it, a title track then appears transparent, so you can see what's beneath it. Okay, and then we might want to put on a couple of dissolves just to kind of make that look a little bit nicer. We could bring in our background a bit subtler.
It is a really friendly club.
Okay, so that's a little bit more detail we've got on the timeline. We've got the tools, and you've got a few functions here that you can use to position things in a very accurate way. One last tool just before the end of this tutorial is the trim tool. Okay, so the trim tool, it allows you to work very accurately in between two clips. So let's say we wanted to make a more accurate cut between these two clips. Okay, if we position the cursor between those two clips, we open up the trim tool, trim monitor, and this allows us now to make changes between the left clip and the right clip. Okay, and you can see a blue bar that runs along the top here that shows which clip we're working on. So if it's running across both, then we're working on both cuts, and you can make a cut here. If I drag left or right with this tool, you can see the in points and the out points are changing on these bottom clips. Okay, here and here. You can either do that by grabbing the tool, or you can do very accurate, frame accurate editing by selecting plus or -1. Okay, what that's doing, if we look down on our timeline down here, it's actually adding one frame to the end of one clip and taking it off from the end of another clip. So remember, that's effectively a red tool. It's not changing the length of the timeline because it's adding to one and taking away from another. If we select on the left or on the right, you'll see that those blue bars change at the top and the bottom, and that's then selecting a specific clip to work on. So in this case, we're just working on the left-hand clip and we're ignoring the right-hand clip. So if I start taking away clips from the left-hand clip, frames from the left-hand clip, you'll see that that's getting shorter. Down on the timeline, you'll see that the timeline is getting shorter because it's not adding anything to the right-hand clip. Okay, so the trim tool is quite a useful way of getting your edits frame accurate. And that can make the difference between something that feels quite clunky in an edit and something that feels quite smooth. So it's worth just kind of, if a cut feels a little bit odd, just using the trim tool to just jog it backwards and forwards slightly, just to kind of to get it exact. And you'll see that lots of these tools are basically doing a very similar thing but in a slightly different way. So you don't have to use them or any of them or all of them, but you can pick and choose the ones that you feel most comfortable with. But give them all a try so that you're kind of familiar with them, and just be aware that they're there.